Hi, this is Mark from Skywagon University, and today we're going to be looking at this Mooney Bravo, which is one of the biggest, fastest Moonies there is. We'll go through a little bit of back history on Moonies first to get a sort of picture of what this one is. So, in the beginning, there was the Mooney M20, well, there was the wooden Moonies. Let's stick with the metal Moonies. There was the Mooney M20C, carbureted 180 horse. Then there was the E, injected 200 horse. Then there was the F, which is injected 200 horse with a stretch fuselage. Then there was the G, which is the carbureted 180 horse stretch fuselage. So those are like C's. A stretch C is an F, sorry, a stretch C is a G, a stretched E is an F. And then in the middle of all that, there was an M20D, which was fixed gear, which is weird. You buy it, learn in it, fixed gear, get your license, get a kit, convert it to a retractable, and now it becomes a C. So the Ds are Cs now. They're out there still. Carbureted 180 horse, short fuselage, Lycoming. Then after that is the 201 M20J, 200 horse, modern aerodynamic, cooler, sleeker, faster, more efficient version of the F. Put a turbo in that, you get the 231 with a TSI 0360 Continental, which is 210 horsepower, 6-cylinder turbo. That became the Encore, and so we've gone through the J, the K, and then there was an L, M20L, Porsche engine, air-cooled, terrible, got discontinued. It became these, in fact. If you took that Porsche engine out and put in a Lycoming 540, you got a TLS Bravo, which is this. And then there was this. And then beyond it is the Ovation and the Eagle and the L and the K and the T and even the U. There's a lot of bigger later Moonies after this, but this is probably the last of the big, fast, affordable planes before you get into the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is a 1994 Mooney TLS Bravo, and TLS stands for Turbo Lycoming Sabre. So we'll have a look around it because it's one of the only big, fast Moonies there is with a Lycoming in it. So if this was my Mooney, I own a 1965 Mooney M20E. If this was my Mooney and I walked to the propeller, I'd be like this. I'd be there by now. The extra length of that cowling is all because under it there's a turbocharged, intercooled, 540 cubic inch, fuel injected Lycoming at 270 horsepower. The long cowl obviously means that it's got more weight in the back. So let's go around and have a look at the tail, where the fuselages have been stretched to compensate for that. So it's bright, put the shades on. Okay, so the length, I talked about the engine being heavier and further out at the front, so obviously you've got to balance that back here. So there are three lengths of Mooney. The C's and E's are short. The F's, the G's, F's and J's and K's are middle length, and then all the big engine ones like this are long, and the length is here. So my window in my E would end about there, and then a 201's window ends here where that bar is. There's a metal bar in the tubular structure of the airframe inside a Mooney, and they can't get rid of that, but they wanted to stretch it, so there's a cover over it. There's a metal bar here, and then they get this extra length. And we'll look inside it, but it's very long, and it's got a massive baggage area. So the tail's further back, the engine is further forward, the wings are the same span. So this is as big a Mooney as you get. And just to put it into perspective of what this plane is to the family of Moonies, in a family scenario, if my Mooney was like the little brother, the 14-year-old kid, this Mooney is the 28-year-old kid who's just come back from 2 tours in Afghanistan, got nothing to prove. This is the top of the pile. This is the big brother in the family. Okay, so for people who aren't familiar with Moonies, the big giveaway on the ramp at a distance when you see a Mooney is the tail's on backwards. They always have the vertical fin, vertical front leading edge, dead straight up and down, and the taper is at the back, matching with the horizontal stabilizer. So the Mooney tail, classic. It's always like this. On this plane, there are some feed fairings. See, this is a factory fairing that fares in the horizontal stabilizer where it meets the fuselage, all about reducing drag. Everything's about reducing drag. This little fairing in here is because the entire tail moves when you trim it, and I don't just mean the entire tail like a Piper, I mean the entire tail. This moves with the trim, and in previous videos I've actually demonstrated that on other planes, but it moves the whole tail like this, so you don't need a trim tab. And if you haven't got a trim tab, you haven't got drag. If you haven't got drag, it's fast. So it's all about speed. And I'll look at some other stuff on this particular plane because the owner, my buddy Dana, he has made it faster even than a Bravo should be. So it's a very, very fast plane. All the control surfaces are operated in a Mooney by push rods. not cables. You have actuator rods like this. There's a rod in there. There's a jack screw in here for the trim. I mean, there's no cables in it, no pulleys, nothing. And out in the wings, it's all push rods, double acting. So everything is pulling and pushing, whereas a cable can only pull. So that is the classic Mooney tail, full length rudder. That might sound a stupid thing to say, but the short-bodied Moonies end here. Some of them. The later C's, if you want to get pedantic about it, don't. But the shorter ones end here, and you have the short little rudder. So they lengthened it when they got into the longer fuselages because there's less wag to them in turbulence. So the short ones can wag in turbulence, but this is not short. So full length tail. But that's the giveaway. And it's got static wicks. It's got a slightly extended elevator. There's an extra little inch of metal here, probably for elevator authorities because of the extra weight of the engine. Static wicks for dissipating electricity. Okay, let's move around. This Bravos are fast anyway. Dana, my buddy who owns it, likes to go fast, and he wanted this to be an even faster Bravo. We'll talk about its exact numbers in a minute. But look, no step. It's even written right here on the flap, no step. And then under here, it's got flap and aileron gap seals that come right up and close the gap between the back of the wing and the front of the flap. Same on the ailerons, so that it's just less drag. The gear doors have been made so they fit exactly, reducing drag. And obviously brand new paint, less friction. So the whole plane has been made as aerodynamically efficient as it can possibly be for what it is. And the numbers on this we'll get really specific with. So because this plane is slightly more finely refined than your average Bravo, I've got my buddy Dana here who's going to come in and we're going to get some direct numbers and performance. Hey Dana, thanks.
You bet.
So let's talk about speeds and manifold pressures and things. What do you fly this at? Not 25,000 feet, but like at 10.5, what would you run it at?
10.5 generally we're somewhere in the area of 190 knots, 195 knots, burning anywhere from 17 to 19.
And what manifold pressure you got that?
Manifold pressure, this runs very high, as you know. The manifold pressure in this thing can go up to 30, 33, and they can say that in the book that it will. I don't run it like that. I run it at 25, 26.
And then what about RPM?
RPM, you're generally, I don't know, 20, 25, 24, right in there.
So if you were say you were at 15,000 and you had it, like, say you were at 30 inches, 2400 RPM, doing 200 knots, what's the fuel burn?
Fuel burn at that, you've cut back a lot. At 16, it generally goes down. You're probably going to burn 16, 17.
Yeah. And what would be like a kind of heavy gas use if you were really pushing it?
Well, we've made some trips to LA in this and gone up to 14.5, and we're doing 210 to 220 knots, and we're burning 20, 21.
So people will think, ooh, 20, 21, I don't want to put up with that fuel burn, I'd never own that plane, $5 a gallon, etc., etc. But think about it. This plane's doing let's do easy maths, 200 knots on 20 gallons an hour is 100 knots on 10 gallons an hour, right? So that's a 172, or an Archer maybe. So if we got in this and went to San Diego, we'd be there in an hour and 40 minutes. We did that.
Yes, yeah.
If you got in an Archer and did it, you'd be there in 3.5 hours. So we'd already done everything and be headed back. But it will use the same fuel from A to B because it's twice the speed. That's the beauty of this plane. Even over my E, sometimes when we're on a trip somewhere, I'll say to Dan, hey, can we take yours? It's faster. And I have to sort of, wow, what? No. And then remember that time when you overtook me and I was in that 182 RG?
Yes, I do. Yeah. No, it's a very fast plane for what it is, and a few mods made a big difference. It's a very fast plane. I don't think you can buy a faster plane for the money till you get into, like you say, into the brand new Moonies and things.
Yeah. So what's this worth? I mean, if somebody said, ooh, I like Bravos, what would I pay? This is a 94, right?
Yeah.
What's it worth?
Mark, I don't follow it. You do more than I, but I bet it's somewhere between $225,000 and $275,000 now.
So like, a quarter the price of a Cirrus?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And 30 knots faster?
30 knots faster, and the Cirrus, like the Mooney, is a little cramped. But it's quite a bit faster.
Well, you know what I say about cramped?
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable, you're only uncomfortable for a short amount of time.
That's right.
Because it's so quick.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. That's great.
You bet.
So the wing on a Bravo is the same dimensions as on a 201. So there's no difference to it. So it's all metal surfaces, very, very strong spar. They have a spar that goes tip to tip under the belly. You don't take one wing off a Mooney It's literally one piece. You remove the entire assembly from the bottom of the fuselage. So very, very strong wing. Obviously, because of the bigger engine and the fuel capacity, the fuel usage, is this holds 44 gallons a side, so it's 88 gallons in it. And they can have Monroy extra tanks that go, there's another cap out here, and you can have 105 gallons in it. But this one's got 88 gallons usable. There's a sight gauge here on the wing that just shows you visually from the cockpit. You can look out and you can see that, and there's literally a float on a stick under there, and that's not electric, it's just a mechanical sight gauge to check, because when you're filling out here, all the fuel is down there. This plane also has got speed brakes. Watch this. Magic. So they help, they're electric, they help for descending with power. So if, rather than pull the power off having been in cruise with the turbocharger and the engine's hot, you want to come down but you don't want to pull the power and shock cool it, put out your speed brakes. And this is one of the few planes that actually needs it, and you can land with them up. So that's a nice feature. All of them have that. So the main thing you get with the stretch fuselage, remember this bar here is where a 201 ends. So this would be, the baggage door would be here, and the back of the seat is right there. Look at the size of the baggage area in this plane. It is enormous, and it's usable. And then remember, Mooney, no door slamming. You close it, latch in position. None of this. So much bigger baggage area, and much more load carrying capability because of the fuel. And we'll go over a few numbers with weight and balance, useful load, and things like that. But first, let's look inside it. Okay, so in the cockpit, remember all Moonies, this diameter here are the same. So it is a little bit tight, but not really much tighter than any of the Pipers other than the Saratogas and Cherokee 6s, of course. But they're always very well equipped because obviously it's a high altitude, fast, cross-country turbocharged plane, so you want it to be. There's a Aspen EFD 1000 here, there's a HSI, Garmin 430, some King comms from Originality, electric trim, autopilot disconnect, a KAP 150 autopilot with altitude hold, a backup GPS that just is a nice big color screen. It's a VFR one that clips in, but all your gauges, your turbo inlet temperature, oil pressure, water, and cylinder head temps are here. 6-cylinder engine analyzer with turbo inlet temp. So you lean it for turbo inlet temp, and we kind of run this one at about 1600 degrees on turbo inlet temp. So yeah, very conventional. Throttle, prop mixture, electric flaps, electric trim, tiny little windshield, but a really good solid IFR cross-country high altitude platform. So I'm under here for two reasons. One, it's shady because it's 100 degrees out there, and two, to show you a little bit around underneath the Bravo, because they've got same wheel and tyre size as all the other Moonies, but they've got double puck brakes, bigger, heavier plane, it needs them. They've got the same gear suspension system, which is 4 rubber discs on the mains and 3 on the nose wheel. So that's exactly the same as on a J or an E or an F or any of them. They have a lot of gear doors. There's a gear door here, which when the wheel is up, it's completely enclosed. You can't see half the tyre, like on, say, on my plane. If my plane flies over, you see half of a tyre. So it's one more moving part, but it's easily operated and easily maintained, no hydraulics. So the gear is very aerodynamic. And talking about aerodynamics, the belly is one piece as well. So it's all about efficiency and speed. So this was a brief chat and a walk around of a really nice sort of mid-90s Mooney TLS Bravo. We're going to do a little experiment and a poll, and you can sort of talk to us in the comments below. We're going to have one video that talks about and goes over the plane like this, and then just like in all our other videos, we're then going to fly it, but the flying video will be a separate video. So let us know whether you like it as 2 parts or you like it as 1 part. And in each video, like I'll be saying, you know, this is the end of the talking walking part, here's our other video, it'll be right here to see the flying part. So let us know what you think about that. But for this walking talking part, this is Mark at Skyway University, and thanks very much for watching. We have a lot of videos on this channel very similar to this. Under here we have subscribe and the little bell. If you liked it, subscribe on that and you'll be getting notifications of when we put other ones up.